Hello everyone and welcome to my review for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 238. As always, before we get into this week's review, if you haven't already, definitely be sure to like and subscribe. I'd like to try and hit at least 100 likes on this week's review. Now then, let's get right down to business. I quite liked this chapter. Watching the discourse over the last several weeks has been quite interesting. As you're probably aware, we're in a bit of a controversial phase of the story. Starting with, of course, the death of Satoru Gojo, how that was handled, and then, everything that's come after it. Some people, such as me, have really liked it. And other people have really not liked it. I think when it comes to whether or not someone likes what's going on in the series right now, I guess it just comes down to something fundamental about what you do and don't like. Either in the series specifically, or just when it comes to writing and narratives on the whole. Because I am really not sure what causes a disparity, such a big disparity in the way that people feel about the stuff that's going on. You know me, I'm loving this stuff. This, in my opinion, has been the best stuff we've gotten since Shibuya. This is some of the best stuff in the series, the last 15, 16 chapters. And other people, they pretty much dropped the series over it. I'm fascinated by the difference in the way that people like or don't like this stuff. I'm not an expert on explaining people's beliefs, so I'm not going to try to do that. I'm just going to get right into this chapter, which I, somehow haven't done in the last 2 minutes. Anyway, so, last week, Kashimo activated his curse technique, Mythic Beast Amber, and Sukuna responded in kind by resuming his reincarnation and returning to his original form from the Heian era, healing the damage to his body without necessitating the use of reverse curse technique, and bringing some of the other advantages that come with this form, which we get a whole double-page spread to analyze. So, in simple terms, Sukuna just has everything a sorcerer could need. Even when he's doing hand signs, he has a pair of hands free. Even when he's doing incantations, he has another mouth free to breathe or to talk. And they don't bring it up, but, obviously having a second pair of eyes is quite helpful for perception. Basically, he has got a perfect body for doing sorcery. He's got everything a sorcerer could ever want. He's always got free hands. He's always able to chant incantations so he can make his techniques as powerful as they can possibly be. He's just perfect. I really like this because it's very similar to how Gojo was the strongest just because of all of the factors that played into his abilities as a sorcerer. Six Eyes giving him such immense efficiency and cursed energy usage that he'd pretty much never run out. And with that infinite supply of cursed energy, he was able to use reverse curse technique to constantly refresh his body, so he could just always use his technique. In a battle against someone who is not Sukuna, who can go blow for blow with Gojo in pretty much everything, especially domain battles, he'll just never run out of steam. He'll just keep going forever. That was a very large contributing factor to Gojo being so powerful. In Sukuna's case here, it's not his cursed energy manipulation that's the strongest. It's the actual abilities that contribute to using techniques. So it's a very interesting distinction in what made both of them just so far beyond everyone else. They're perfectly suited to using sorcery, but in different ways. With Gojo, it was mostly cursed energy manipulation, and then he just had a really broken technique that his own innate abilities, and then of course Gojo's immense talent, allowed him to just do godlike things with. With Sukuna, he is just built to do sorcery. To do sorcery at its absolute pinnacle, constantly, without issue. And that's just really cool. And then we get a little bit more information on Sukuna's little misadventures during the Heian era. How he annihilated the elite Celestial Squad and the 5 Void Generals, the servants of the Fujiwara. He repelled the forces of the Abe clan's Desichin Squad, which included Angel and some of the remnants of the Sugiwara. So that gives us some information, finally, on how Angel knows Sukuna. They've fought Sukuna before. And this also proves that the little image we saw of Hei and Sukuna at the end of Sendai when Uro's talking about what it takes to be the strongest was her own memory of seeing Sukuna. It also shows why she was so freaked out when Sukuna pulled up into Sendai, because she remembered, because she saw him in the flesh. So she knew, oh, it's so over. We are so screwed now that this guy is here. So that answers that, I guess. Then we get into the melee. We get into the fight between Sukuna and Kashimo, and ladies and gentlemen, it's not a fight. My mom asked me, did you do the dishes? I just turned around and said, Hajime Kashimo. She smiled. She knew they were washed. He got mogged. He got absolutely curb stomped here. And it's a bit sad to see. Now, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't getting very high on the Kashimo agenda. I was very excited to see what Kashimo could do. You can just look back, like, a couple chapter reviews ago. But we take a look back to the past. We play a little bit of the harp music as we do a little flashback to my reaction to chapter 190. I mean, shit, man. What is this curse technique that's probably going to fail against Sukuna in despairing fashion? In which, you know, I somewhat accurately predict what will happen. Is, yeah, Kashimo's technique's gonna be really busted if he's already this strong without using his technique. But, you know, he wants to fight Sukuna. Sukuna! Yeah. It goes about as well as you would expect from when Kashimo was introduced by saying, I want to fight Sukuna. He just gets totally outclassed. The forearms are just so useful for grappling and beating on someone, and he's just so speedy. And then, of course, there's his technique. As now that he's got a second mouth, he can chant the incantation for dismantle, while also telling Kashimo, hey, you should dodge this. To tell your opponent, dodge this. Oh my god. Now, because he's given a warning ahead of time, Kashimo is able to escape with only most of his right hand getting cut off by the world-cutting dismantle, which just leaves a giant, almost void cut in the earth. So, unfortunately, after the explanation of Kashimo's ability, which is great, his ability is so busted, what does he do? Well, he uses X-rays to analyze Sukuna, which really didn't give him that much useful information. And then he just kind of starts firing energy blasts. the most remarkable thing that he does is reforming the missing part of his hand with cursed energy. Kind of like a cursed spirit, which, honestly, looking at Kashimo, it seems like his technique pretty much just turns him into cursed energy. He basically becomes a cursed spirit. So that's kind of neat. But for an ability that has limitless versatility to just be applied like this, in such a basic way, there's only one explanation. Kashimo's a meathead, which we already knew. And I'm not sure how much Kashimo would have struck me as the type to, like, I don't know, try and hit Sukuna with 10,000 amps to explode all of his internal organs. I mean, the lightning bolt here, who knows? Maybe it would have, if it hit. But yeah, I think if this beast, the mythic beast Amber, if this technique was put in the hands of a much more tactical and clever sorcerer, someone like Megumi, perhaps, he would do unbelievable things before he dies. Because, I guess it is just a technique of this power kills you. And then he just swore, I'm only going to fight Sukuna with this. Makes sense. You apparently became the strongest of the Edo period. You just became unchallenged in your lifetime, just through cursed energy manipulation and martial arts. Alright. Good job, son. Anyway, tech this dismantle. I was wondering what happened to the beam, because, well, it just sort of disappears. But then I was also wondering, what are these two explosions that happened besides Sukuna here? Like, what even caused those? And I guess it's just that the beam got cut in half by dismantle. Because, it cuts everything, even lightning. So yeah. We then get into a bit of monologuing from Sukuna, who talks about how there was some person who was preaching to him about love, and how she thought, I don't know anything about it because I live in a world of my own. I get what she was going for, but it's kind of annoying to hear someone prattle on about what you don't know. Which, honestly, is one of the realest things Sukuna's ever said. It's just, it's really annoying when someone tells you you don't understand something. Even if you kind of get what they're going for, it's really annoying for someone to go, oh, no, you don't get it. You don't get this. Let me explain it to you. It's obnoxious. And then he says, she chose the wrong person to preach to. You and Gojo Satoru would have made much better company for her. So, the Sukuna dialogue we get in this chapter is fascinating. It's great, because I think it gives us maybe our best insight into his character yet. And it doesn't really reveal that much new about his character. It just kind of gives a little more context to the way that he acts. Before we get to that, he thrashes around Kashimo some more, tosses him aside, like he's throwing a trash bag into the dumpster. And then, as Kashimo is getting ready to fire another blast at Sukuna, he sees a Connect 4 graph coming at him. He sees a giant piece of graph paper. A massive grid of cleave just shooting forward towards him. And then he's his old self again. So, that's not great for him. He's kind of getting the Jogo treatment here. Now, reasonably, you have Cleave, which probably now has the cutting everything property applied to it, rushing towards you. And then before we can see however you react or respond to it, you're immediately in your inner world. It's not a great sign. It's not looking good. Common sense, this man is dead as hell. And, we never see his body. And that can be chalked up to the fact that, well, his body will disintegrate after his technique is completed. And presumably, that includes when he gets killed. When he gets killed, his technique will end. And then he'll just crumble away into nothingness. However, this is shonen. This is a shonen series, and one of the big rules of shonen. You don't pronounce anyone dead until you see their corpse, or the narrator overtly tells you this person has died. You should typically wait for that. I don't understand how there were people coping that Gojo was going to heal himself, or that he was going to choose to come back from the afterlife after the whole scene of him being happy, and also the title of the chapter pretty much saying, yeah, Gojo wants to go back to being his teen self, so he's going to stay in the afterlife. Really, genuinely thought that he was going to come back. They really thought he was going to come back, even after the narrator says he's dead, even after the death of Satoru Gojo. With Gashimo here, I didn't see no narration. I also didn't see no body crumbling away into nothingness. Is this delusion? Probably. I mean, he's probably dead. But you can never be too certain. I need to see him cold and dead on the ground before I declare the man deceased. I gotta see. I have to see his form disintegrate into nothingness before I go, yup, he's dead. He got washed. What a bum. Still, though, it's the Jogo treatment. Man, you're really cracked. Unfortunately, you're fighting a guy who is at least one tier above you. Gashimo, I put you maybe in the top 5. I'm debating if I put you or Yuki higher, because your technique, in theory, has way more applications. Way more applications. Your ability to fight without your technique is crazy. However, mass, ignoring conceptual abilities, the suicide black hole. It's funny, I guess both of their ultimate moves are suicide moves. That's interesting to think about. But, I got a few more months till the end of the year, and I do the new top 10 or top 15 ranking. So I got some time to ponder on it. But this vision that Kashimo has, which I guess confirms that Jogo wasn't hallucinating, like I had originally thought, and then it was explained to me that, no, it seems like Jogo's hallucinating. I'm like, oh, that does make sense. Him congratulating Jogo does seem a little out of character, considering how badly he got washed. But Sukuna tells Kashimo here, while this beating is happening, you were strong. So, I don't know. But, there's some interesting dialogue here. Now, some of this I originally thought was coming from Kashimo, but it seems like everything on this first page here is Sukuna talking to Kashimo. I'm sure many warriors have given heart and soul challenging you. They weren't doing so to curse you. They simply wanted to be recognized, to validate who they thought themselves to be. You met their eyes in response and slaughtered them. You asked earlier, how could I possibly connect with and love those beneath me? Well, if that isn't love, I don't know what is. And then he appears here in his original form, and Kashimo in his current form, and says, we are loved because we are strong. We simply respond to that love in kind. And yet, you lament solitude all the more, which makes you greedy. Kashimo asks, you're saying this is enough for you? Then why mince your soul into cursed objects and watch all those years go by? And then he says, let me assure you, love is worthless. The thought of needing someone else to fulfill me never crossed my mind. If I want to eat, I eat. If I see an eyesore, I kill it. and if it entertains me, I throw it a bone. I live according to my own stature. If that can't be measured or understood, that's not my problem. So, this is so interesting. Gojo was basically forced into his solitude. He did not choose to be the strongest. He just kind of became the strongest. And he did not like the separation that gave him from everyone else. He wanted to be able to connect with people and just be a normal person. You know, it was kind of like the Aizen thing. He just kind of wanted to be someone that wasn't so far beyond everyone else. With Kashimo here, he was kind of the same way, but was just more so kind of pondering, like, what is the point of this? Why does strength carry this solitude? Is this something that can be mended by a battle between the strong? Or is this just part of what being the strongest is? I want to know, and you're the only one who can tell me, because you're the strongest. With Sukuna, he's like, I don't care. I don't care about being isolated. I do whatever I want. I live as I please. He has a very similar philosophy to Mahito. That was pretty much his philosophy. If you have an urge to do something, just do it. You have the power to do whatever you want with your power, so just do it. Once again, Mahito, had he been given the chance to continue growing, I think he could have become the modern-day Sukuna. I mean, the amount of growth he underwent in the few months of his existence, and the insane growth he underwent just during his fight in Shibuya, there's no doubt in my mind that if he was just given a few more months, think about what it would have been like if he were around for years or something. He could have attained such a level of power because, one, his technique was perfect. You know, the ability to adapt your form to whatever suits the circumstance, and a technique that is as lethal as idle transfiguration. How could you not attain such power, you know? How could you not? And then he had the mindset. In addition to his, his talent, he was just an incredible learner, copying 0.2 second domain after seeing it once. His mindset of having no regard for anything else and doing as you please, acting like a living calamity. Gojo didn't have that mindset. Gojo did not have the mindset of something that disregarded all life. He still wanted to be a part of it. He didn't have the mindset that Uro described that is indicative of the strongest. The mindset that Sukuna has of just, I don't really care about anything. I don't really place sentimental value on things. I do whatever I want. If I don't like something, I destroy it. If I do like something, I'll humor it. And why does he do all this? Why does he like persisting until this time? Why does he like messing around with people? It's because humans are amusing. They are as diverse as they are fleeting. The perfect thing to slurp up to pass time until I die. So ultimately, Sukuna's idea, his motivation, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. The fact that no one's been able to fucking kill me over a very long time, that's their problem. If they kill me, I don't care. I'm just here to do whatever I feel like doing until someone can finally put me down. It's just no one's managed to do that yet. That's kind of peak. Now, as for why did he decide to pass on into the future here, he finds humans entertaining. He kind of likes them. They amuse him. And, if Kenjaku went, hey, do you want to see what humans are going to be like in 1,000 years? He probably went, Yeah, why not? That sounds interesting. It's not like he has any real attachment to whatever era he appears in. He can rock anywhere, really. So, that's just really cool. If Kashimo is dead, which he probably is, once again, very high likely chance he is deceased. I still think this was a pretty good send-off for his character, because at the end of the day, Kashimo was a side character. He appeared during his fight with Hikari, he gave a little bit of commentary during the Gojo Sukuna fight, and then he showed up here and got killed. He's a side character. We hoped maybe he could escape the side character fighting a main villain cliches, but alas, he was not that powerful. How tragic. And then we go back to the real world, where Hikari's domain shatters, and he's still looking completely fine, and Urayume looks a little bit annoyed. Probably because they, well, couldn't kill him earlier. But they both look pretty unscathed, so I'm curious as to what exactly happened in there. But these two breaking out of the domain is not the most notable part of the end of this chapter. The most notable part is the appearance of Yuji and Higuruma, who are now here to fight Sukuna. Now, intelligent reaction to this. Arguably the intelligent reaction, though it's also just sort of the base initial reaction. It's Sukuna's reaction. Just what do you think you'll be able to do? What the hell do you think you can do against Sukuna? You saw what he did to Gojo. You probably saw a little bit of what he just did to Kashimo. What do you think you can do? Then we get to the more thought-out reaction, past the initial reaction, in which you try to think, well, yeah, what do they think they can do? We have some interesting stuff here. Yuji has some weird-looking arms here. Now, it looks like these have formed over the sleeves of his jacket, so I think he's just using curse tools until we get some sort of confirmation of this being an ability that he got from, like, the Death Womb paintings. For now, I'm gonna assume it's probably curse tools. Kind of reminds me of, like, the arm that Yuta equipped during Sendai. That was a curse tool. We can only beat Sukuna by stacking hacks. We've got to use as many hacks abilities in conjunction against him as possible. That's the only way to beat him. And fortunately, we have one of the most lethal hacks abilities in the series here with Higuruma. Because when you are forced into, forced suicide punishment, or deadly sentencing, fucking January, you cannot commit acts of violence. And if you're found guilty of a crime, well, at the very least, you'll have your curse technique confiscated. That's the most important thing right now. Confiscating Sukuna's technique. We can stop him from using, any of his powers. We force him to just rely on cursed energy manipulation. That makes things somewhat more manageable. However, he still dog-walked Kashimo pretty much just with melee combat. And also, I imagine you can't take away a technique that is imbued into a cursed tool, so we gotta take away Kamutoke from him. We gotta take that little lightning knife out of Sukuna's hand. That's essential as well, because that was a non-factor against Kashimo. That'll be a major factor here. And then, if you're given the death sentence, Higuruma is able to summon the Sword of Extermination, which just kills you if it hits you. Just straight up, you just die. So that's a thing we can use to kill Sukuna, because no matter how durable he is, no matter how long he's able to heal himself for, if he gets hit by the "you die if you get hit by this sword," he dies. There are, of course, some very major obstacles in the way here. For starters, Urayume is still here. I imagine Hikari's going to keep dealing with them, because obviously they're going to get in the way of whatever these two are trying to do against Sukuna. Then you have Sukuna himself. Higuruma's domain is really busted. However, how do you counter a domain? With a domain of your own. Probably even with, an anti-domain technique. Like if Sukuna knows Hollow Wicker Basket. Oh, ooh, I'm no longer forced to not commit violence. Fuck you. And then, it's done. So they have to stop him from doing that. We also have to stop him from using his domain, because if reverting to his original form fully healed him, that should heal his brain. Even if he doesn't know how to heal it manually, resetting to his original form should reset to the original form of his brain. So that should be back at full health as well. Should be in perfectly fine condition, so he should be able to use Malevolent Shrine again. Obviously, that's kind of a fucking problem. There has to be some way to either prevent Sukuna from using his domain, or make him use it before Higuruma uses his own domain, and Higuruma is able to go through the trial faster than Sukuna is able to refresh his technique and cast the domain again. This is assuming he has it back, which I am, because fully healing his body should let him use it again. So there has to be some way to stop him from using the domain. I'm not entirely sure what that is right now. I'm curious to find out how they plan on doing that. I also suppose Kirara's technique would probably be useful for some of these people in terms of defense, or just, stopping people from getting fucking murdered. I figure if they manage to take away Sukuna's technique, so he can't use Cleave or Dismantle or any of his ranged attacks that will just attack. They will just cut, that kind of shit. If he's forced into just pure melee combat, Kirara's technique would actually be very helpful in stopping Sukuna from just straight up killing them in melee combat. Of course, Yuji's got experience fighting people with forearms, so, that difference makes no difference to him. It's just going to be a matter of how does Yuji currently, with these cursed tools, stack up to Heian era Sukuna in pure melee combat. He is probably still inferior. However, if the other Death Womb paintings also use blood manipulation, and, well, they presumably use some version of it, but if Yuji's able to use Flowing Red Scale, which takes Yuji, who is already able to contend with Chozo using Flowing Red Scale and Flowing Red Scale stack, and then we amp Yuji further, I think Yuji may be able to contend in a pure melee battle. At the very least, hold his own. I think he can get some good hits in if it comes down to something like that. Techniques come out, oh, Yuji's gonna fucking die. But if it's just melee, maybe he can pull it off. Another thing, the last thing. It may be possible to take Sukuna into a trial that he can't escape or counter through some kind of binding vow. And Higuruma has pretty much said himself that he intends to be judged and punished for his own crimes, eventually. And I don't really see Higuruma doing anything after this point in the series, because, the series is almost over, and he's here. He can finally judge the real culprit behind the massacre in Shibuya. He, as much as I love Higuruma, he is the best character we've gotten post-Shibuya. He's probably not seeing past this. He's probably gonna die, because he probably wants to die. And this is a good opportunity for that to happen. I could see him doing some kind of binding vow that either costs his life or puts his life on the line in order to bring Sukuna into a trial that he's not able to use his domain or anything to get out of. It would be interesting if actually both of them go on trial. You know, if Judgment accuses both of them of crimes and they both have to stand trial, that could be really cool. It would also be really cool if, you know, Higuruma dies because of that, and then the trial keeps going. That could be really cool. That would be really interesting. These guys are not even remotely top tiers, showing up to fight Sukuna, who is top of the verse. I am fascinated to see what they're going to do here. Because, you know that side character curse I mentioned a little while ago? I've only ever seen that broken one time. You will probably never hear me say anything remotely similar to this ever again, but shout out to Magna from Black Clover for being a side character and managing to defeat one of the main villains by himself using a very conditional hacks ability. He's way weaker than Dante, but he still beat him because of his hacks. We could see something like that here. And also, Yuji's the main character. So he's got that MC boost, the mild MC plot armor. I'm so excited to see what they're going to pull out here. Just what do you think he'll be able to do? I can't wait to find out. But with that, that's all I've got for this week's review. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reactions and reviews every week that we get a new chapter. If you enjoyed discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.